The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. You guys are hilarious. Not Cowboys tactics. That's hilarious. It's crazy. This thing was supposed to start at 10:45. I was prepared. I was ready to go. I got a business call. Then I got another business call. Then my dad just called. Boss man just called. And I'm like, is this stream not supposed to happen or something? Because it was just crazy. It was back to back to back. But anyway, we're here. And I told you I was going to come back and talk to you guys about the Terry presser. So, you know, I always overanalyze these press conferences. His was longer than AP and DQ's. So we're going to talk about what he had to say. The Commanders signed 2 guys to their practice squad. We got 2 new P squatters. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. And we're going to also set the tone for tonight because we're going to have a final toast. One big final toast. I'm also going to give you my expectations for the season. What constitutes success? Remember, I told you that was a big question for me. I asked every single person that was on the summer series that had anything to do with the team, what constitutes success? I've been asking everyone that question. What does success for this team look like for you in 2025? Because of the expectations that are set for them, how can they meet those expectations? We know how they can exceed them, obviously. How can they meet whatever expectations you have set for them? What is a successful season for you? I'm going to define a successful season for me tonight, as well as toast to multiple things, but mostly to a successful 2025 season, right? So with that said, let's get to the house cleaning portion of the show before we get into what Terry had to say at his press conference yesterday. So we start with the news that we talked about yesterday. It was a rumor yesterday. It is now a fact that Donovan Edwards has signed to the Commanders practice squad. They also added cornerback Darius Rush. So just a little background information on both of these guys. Donovan Edwards, undrafted this past year out of Michigan, was a huge part of their national championship run when they won the Natty back in 2023. With that same team with Frozone on it. He should have come out after that year. He would have probably been a 3rd-round pick or so. He decided to go back to be the guy at Michigan. It didn't go well in 2024, and thus he ended up being undrafted. So he gets an opportunity on the Jets roster, go to camp. You should have known he was doomed. Hashtag numbers matter. He was given the number 40 as a jersey number. You can't win as a running back with the number 40 as your jersey number. You know, wasn't Peyton Hillis 40? You got to be white and 230 pounds to be able to wear a 40s number as a running back and actually be successful. And I know you're going to go, well, Alfred Morris wore 46. He can thank Robert Griffin III and the Shanahans for his success. However, most of the time, if you're going to wear a 40 number and be a running back, you're either a fullback or you're a big, husky, white running back. So he got 40 and he was dead on arrival. Dead, I tell you. But hopefully he'll come in here. He'll pick a number that actually gives him a fighting chance. And we'll see if he can be successful. I like this kid, Donovan Edwards. I told you guys this yesterday. And I had told you this throughout the draft process. If we don't draft a running back and this guy goes undrafted, because I thought there was a chance he would go undrafted, he would be the target. And so luckily we got Bill and we didn't have to explore that, but we may get the best of both worlds, get Bill, and now Donovan Edwards finds his way to us. And hopefully he can end up sticking here on the roster. He gives us some speed and another guy that can offer us a little bit of wiggle in the backfield. He's not a guy that's necessarily going to make people miss in space. That's not really his thing. He's more of a straight line speed guy. But we need speed. That's something I'll never turn down in the backfield. And then Darius Rush is a cornerback out of South Carolina. He was drafted in 2023 by the Indianapolis Colts in the 5th round. Did not make their roster. Bounced around the league a little bit. Was with the Steelers. Actually played in a regular season game last season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was in camp this year with the Cleveland Browns. Did not make their roster, obviously. And now he's joining our practice squad. So he's a young player. Both of these guys are sub 4.5 40 guys. So both of these guys ran 4.4 40. So both of these guys can run. I think Darius Rush might have run a sub 4.4 40, whatever the case may be. He's a 6-foot corner, sub 200 pounds, right around 200 pounds, runs a 4.4 40. And, more of a special teams type of guy. Don't necessarily see him. You know who I look at him as a replacement for? Kevon Seymour, right? That's a guy that they really liked around here. And he was a guy that was always hovering around the roster. They needed to pull somebody up. They trusted Kevon Seymour. Kevon Seymour is out for the season, due to an injury he sustained in camp. And so Darius Rush is a guy that come in here. I think that guy is more Antonio Hamilton for us now. That's on the practice squad. They really like him and they like him on teams. So he's going to be our new Kevon Seymour, but maybe Darius Rush could be a solid addition for the future. We'll see. The practice squad is the practice squad for a reason. We'll see, but I'm really excited about the Donovan Edwards signing in any event. So let's go ahead and take a couple look at some pictures from yesterday. Guess who's Bizak? Our guy, and he was excited yesterday to be back, and rightfully so. He talked about it in his presser, which we're going to get to here in a second, about, how he had to sit on the sideline and basically watch these guys go out and perform, and, was killing them. And so he's like, I always talk about, sports being a microcosm of life, right? That's a conversation we've had before in the past. And when I talk about it, I always say that you can always take, life lessons from sports and you can apply them to life. And, one of the things I, kind of gathered from Terry is he truly missed the little things, and it's the little things that actually you look back on in life that you truly end up missing, right? It's the little things. Like conversations with people, you take them for granted in the moment. And then when that person's no longer here, you miss the little talks you might have had late at night when everybody was asleep, or a phone call you might have had with that person on Sunday mornings, or whatever the case may be. It's that little thing, right? And not that you necessarily take it for granted. You don't think about it, right? Because it's just something that's a part of your routine, or it's something that you just expect to happen. And then when it's gone, you realize, damn, I really missed that. And he was like, it was something as simple as him playing catch with the music blaring, and he's playing catch before the start of practice and just getting warmed up and talking shit with his teammates. And he's like, I really just missed that. And, you can see him enjoying himself right here, like cheesing. And that's the Terry we miss. That's the Terry we love, right? The guy that's just always constantly happy, this zest for life, always with a smile on his face. That's the Terry we know and we love. And so, it's good to see him back in his element, man. This team is not the same without him. Speaking of which, back in their element, look at our quarterback. Boy, he needed Terry back. I mean, that's an understatement. I mean, we talked all offseason, all training camp about the lackluster wide receiver position and how, no one stepped up in his absence, sans for Debo. Towards the end, Jalen Lane, took a step forward that we were really pleased with. But he was a rookie. It took him a little while. And that's okay. And that's how that's usually supposed to go. But none of the veterans stepped up. They struggled at times. Jaden did his thing, right? But no one is more happy about Terry being back than Terry McLaurin. The next person that is happy that Terry McLaurin is back is Jaden Daniels, okay? And that smile kind of says it all, right? Like, damn, I'm glad you're back on the field, bro, because this shit was terrible trying to do it without you. And the only thing that we truly missed with Terry, honestly, outside of the fact that practices could have been more competitive. The offense could have been a little bit more sharper had Terry been out there. Is we won't get to see him in all of the different every graphic that they put together with the championship unis. Terry would have been a part of that photo op had he been, under contract and not going through a dispute. And so it would he was supposed to be a part of that. It would have been dope. But ultimately, we'll see him in the championship unis when we get to I think the first time is week 8 against Seattle, if I'm not mistaken. So looking forward to seeing, Terry in the old threads. He's worn them before here, so it's not a big deal. We've seen Terry in those before, but I'm excited to see him get back out on the field. And clearly, our quarterback is definitely excited. As somebody just said in the comment section, John Singleton just said, JD5's glowing. That's exactly what he's got that glow. He's got that glow right now, right? So you love to see it. Moving right along. This right here is the definition of scary hours for opposing teams right here, man. This is the scary season we've been talking about, having to deal with these two plus the guy we just saw in Jaden Daniels. I did a show for Bleacher Report, the quick hits yesterday, and I talked about the top 5 trios in the league, and the trios consist of a quarterback and 2 wide receivers. And I don't know how you can come up with a trios list and not have the trio of Jaden, Terry McLaurin, and Deebo Samuel in your top 5. I don't know how you can create a list of the top 5 trios in the league and not have them in there. So this is going to be a really dynamic group, I think, because the thing that makes groups dynamic to me is that you have guys that can play off of one another and have skill sets that are different. When you have duplicates, it's hard to have the success that you want because they're kind of stepping on each other's toes, so to speak. But when you have guys that complement each other the way that Terry and Deebo ultimately will and can, it just makes it so much easier to be successful. Terry is a vertical threat. Terry is a tough contested catch guy. Terry's someone that can kind of work all, levels of the field, but he's not really a run after the catch guy, even though he had the, wide receiver screen against the Lions for the touchdown. All of that was straight line speed, which is what Terry, has a master's degree in. Terry in a straight line, we saw it against Dallas, right? Pretty much caught it, didn't have to change directions a ton. He weaved that way and he weaved that way. It wasn't any cuts. He got to just keep accelerating and running full speed. You're not going to catch Terry. Like, people be trying to try my guy Terry like he ain't still fast. Like he ain't a legit 4.3 dude. And people be coming for his life because you don't always necessarily see the tremendous separation because dudes be playing off of Terry a lot of times. Terry gets a cushion because they know he can flat out fly. And he still run past a lot of dudes. And we saw it a ton last year, the Bears game. The dude was playing, 7 to 10 yards off, and Terry blew past him on a 3rd down, ran right by him. And if Terry could, like you said, we talked about, pick his damn feet up, he'd have scored a touchdown, right? Like, Terry blew past dudes last year, and he can still flat out fly in a straight line. But, you can't throw Terry a hitch and try to tell him to juke somebody, make somebody miss, all that. That ain't his game. But the guy he's standing next to, that is definitely his game. And that's why I think this is going to work so well, because for all that Terry does and doesn't do, right? For all that Terry does, he fills up the field and he fills up the stat sheet. He can work all 3 levels, right? Because you could throw a shallow cross to Terry and, we've seen him score touchdowns on that. We've seen him one-hand touchdown against the Giants on a shallow cross where he reaches out, catches the ball, breaks a tackle, and scores. But that's more of a Deebo Samuel thing, right? Terry's more of an intermediate and deep guy. Deebo's more of that underneath, shallow, get it to me quickly. Like, I don't ever want to see Terry on a jet sweep. I'm done with that. I don't need that in my life. Usually disaster happens when we try to get Terry a jet sweep. Usually disaster happens disaster happens when we try to throw Terry a wide receiver screen. It's usually never anything good. It's either a fumble or some kind of mishap, loss of yards. That's why the Detroit one was such a thing of beauty, but it also was schemed up to perfection because Cliff made them declare and we had numbers. And so everything just worked out perfectly. But Debo, you can put him in jet motion and you can give him the ball, as we saw in the second preseason game, his only touch of the preseason, a jet sweep, and boom, Debo can do the rest. Made a guy miss, got up the sideline. You can throw it to Debo on a wide receiver screen. You can throw it to Debo on a tunnel screen. You can throw it to Debo on a shallow cross and watch him work. And so I think these two are going to make just this beautiful pairing. And you couple them with 5 at quarterback, this shit is about to be live. And I can't wait to see it. We've been waiting all summer to see this. Looks like we're going to have to wait till September 7th. We're not going to have to wait much longer, but boy, this is going to be a lot of fun watching these two devour NFL defenses on a weekly basis. You can't just key in on 17 anymore. He's got help. He's got guns and shit now, right? We got 5, and now he's got 1. And Terry talked about Jalen Lane in his press conference. I think he's going to also be a factor in addition to Noah Brown. Like, we got stuff. All of a sudden now I'm looking around and I'm like, you got Ertz, you got Noah Brown, you got Debo. You potentially have a run game you can lean on. Like, there's a lot of shit to complement Terry in this offense now to hopefully free him up and give him more one-on-one looks. You know why A.J. Brown and Smitty get to be so successful in Philadelphia, and why even to a lesser degree, but I think it is important to mention this, Jalen Hurts gets to be successful because Hurts gets to look outside, see one-on-one coverage, safety coming down, because why? You got to stop the run. You got to stop Saquon. You got to bring that 8th defender down into the box, right? Now you got a single high safety. He's got to pick a side. Whatever side he picks, you make him wrong, right? So Hurts just does a little signal out there. AJ knows, let's convert this route to a go route, and now he can just drop one in the bucket over the top, right? That's what I'm hoping we can get to with Terry now, that you have Debo and you have Ertz and you have Noah Brown and you got Jalen Lane, you got all these weapons and potentially a run game. Whereas now Jaden can just look out at Terry, see the one-on-one coverage, because that safety has to respect Debo, has to respect Zach Ertz, and all of a sudden Terry's getting vertical and we're taking a shot against Deontay Banks. So I love it here, man. I love it here. This is really comfortable for me. So I love to see it. I love to see it. So let's talk about Terry. I just talked about him and what I'm dying to see from him, this upcoming season and what I feel like it could be. Let's talk about what he actually said at his press conference today, or yesterday rather. So he started off the press conference talking about, did he get what he wanted? He was asked, did he get what he wanted? And he said yes. I mean, what is he going to say? No, not really, but I signed it anyway. Of course he's going to say yeah. But, he went on to say that, they gave him an opportunity to, it's because essentially what Terry signed was really a 1-year extension. And it's 1 year, I mean, really it's 2 years, $44 million, like on its head, but it could get up to, with incentives up to the 50 million, right? Guaranteed. After the 2026 season, he's not guaranteed. Like, there's no guarantees really on his contract. We saw the breakdown from Albert Breer. There's really no guarantees in 2027. So the team, theoretically speaking, could get out of the deal if they wanted to with minimal cost to them if he's not performing, which again, I just don't see that happening. But they protected themselves. There is an exit ramp for them in 27, in 28, if need be. If I'm Terry, and I think we could be right back in this same situation with him based off of the contract that we just eyeballed, Terry could come back to the table after the 26th season and say, hey, bro, I need some more guarantees money, right? It's the same thing Trent Williams did with the 49ers, right? They gave him a new contract. He got, all the guarantees out of the way, and then he was sitting there with 2 years left with no guaranteed money. He was like, bro, I'm not playing on this. It's the same thing Matthew Stafford did. Signed an extension after he won the Super Bowl with the Rams, played 2 more years. Last year was the second year after he got the extension after he won the Super Bowl. And he was like, bro, I got to have some guaranteed money. I can't go into the season playing on a deal that's not fully guaranteed, right? I need my money. Terry could do the same thing after the 26th season, which is good for him. Good for him. He can come back and get another bite of the apple. So, we'll see what ultimately he'll be under contract. But if I'm Terry, I need some guarantees. I need some assurance, right? So that's going to be an interesting conversation. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, right? But I think he did get what he wanted, right? I think the compromise here, let's talk about the deal. So I think the compromise between Terry and the team was this. We're going to give you a bunch of upfront money. Terry got $30 million to sign, and he's going to get $44 million, possibly up to 50 in 2 years, essentially. In 2 years, he's going to get $50 million. That's a lot of money for just 2 years, right? So that's the first piece. For the team, you get all this money up front. We're not tied to you into the future. We're not going to give you this big, robust salary. And we can get out if we need to after 2026. That's their end of the bargain, right? Like, hey, we get to get out of this thing. If you're not producing at the level that we think you should be, we can move on from you with no penalty to us. That's their way of coming to the table and saying, all right, we're going to give you an opportunity. In Terry's case, you give me all this upfront money, and you give me the opportunity to come back to the table and get another bite if I've outperformed this contract here, this portion of the contract, the early years of it, and you still see me continuing to play at a high level, then we could talk about you maybe spicing up the back end of this thing and giving me some guarantees and maybe adding a little bit more to it to make it worth my while, right? So I think that was the compromise between the two, right? So I think he did get what he wanted, right? I think he did. Obviously, he wanted more money, more guarantees, all that good stuff. But if you're not going to give me, remember, Rio and myself, we talked about this on the Commanders Kings probably like 2-3 months ago. And we said, look, if I'm Terry, I want the shorter term deal. It gives me an opportunity to get paid now and come back and get another bite at the apple. This, in effect, is a 3-year extension, but it's really just a 1-year extension. It's really what it amounts to for Terry. So he could come back and get another bite of the apple after the 26th season is what it amounts to. So, and we'll see if he takes advantage of it or not. He plays well this year and next year, he'll have a shot to get paid. He'll get a shot to get paid one more time. He was asked how he feels heading into week 1, and he said, and they also kind of said, did you feel like there was a certain time that you needed to come back to be ready? And he was like, yeah, this was the perfect time. I knew that I needed to get out here, get out here with my teammates, get my feet under me, get reps. And that's all the things that he wanted to do. And he feels like that he'll be more than ready for week 1. And he said it felt good just getting out there today, got reps. And he's like, look, don't get it twisted. I've been working behind the scenes. So hey, I'm ready to go, basically. He was asked, does this contract reflect how he feels? And again, he said, yes, I do think he wanted more money, obviously, more guaranteed money. But I think the one thing that he was excited about is this contract allows him to earn more if he's able to go out and hit a bunch of markers. There's an additional $9.4 million in this contract that he can get his hands on. If he just hits, and I say this tongue-in-cheek almost, because there's nothing easy about 83 catches, 1,097 yards, 10 touchdowns, and being a first or second team All-Pro. There's nothing easy about any of those statistics. It's hard to get 83 catches in the NFL. It's hard to get over 1,000 yards receiving. I don't care that there's 18 games or 17 games, excuse me. Still hard to, have over 1,000 yards receiving. If it weren't, everybody would be getting 1,000 yards receiving. And it's such a dependent position, unlike running back, where all you got to do, I mean, obviously you need the line to block for you, but if you can make guys miss, you can still get it done. Receiver is such a dependent position. You need the offensive line to do their job. You need the quarterback to do their job. You need the other receivers on your team to do your job. And then you need the quarterback to deliver a catchable football. With the running back, all you need is a good snap and a handoff. You need the line to block, obviously. But if you can make a guy miss or two, you can still eat on your own. So I think he feels like, I'm going to go out and prove myself. I'm going to go out, help this team get to the playoffs, hit all of these mile markers in my contract, get these incentives, and I'm going to look up and I'm going to be getting close to that 50 mil guaranteed. He talked about the age conversation, and he said that he understands the conversation. He nailed the age conversation. He nailed it. And I expected nothing less from Terry because he gets it. He basically said, look, man, I get it. I understand the whole conversation surrounding age. I understand, the theory behind it, and it all makes sense. But he's like, my situation is unique, and why can't I be one of the exceptions to the rule? He's like, this is what I've been. This has been one of my rallying cries is Terry. The tread on Terry's tires is different than the average 30-year-old tread that's off the tires. There's a lot more tread left on Terry's tires because, as Terry put it, I was at Ohio State. I played there until I was 24, but he said in those years I was only getting 20 to 30 reps a game at receiver. I was playing special teams. I wasn't out there, getting a ton of reps every week. And so he's like, I'm, a lot of guys that are going into their age 30 season, they're in year 9, they're in year 10. I'm in year 7. And I came into the league pretty fresh because I wasn't overworked in college. So, and he's like, bro, he's like, just 6 months ago, he said what? He said 6, but I think he just said just in January, I had a 60-yard wide receiver screen. I'm not slowing down. Like, and then he took it a step further. And he's like, I'm a much more savvy player now than I was when I came in the league. I understand the game a lot better. So mentally, I'm faster than I was, when I first came in the league 7 years ago. But I'm still as athletic as I was when I came in the league. So I'm a better player right now than I was, 2-3 years. And I believe that. I totally believe that is what he is at his career. I think he is in his prime. For most guys, you hit 30 and you're now entering the downside of your career. I think Terry's still in the prime of his career, and he will be for the next, I think, basically 2 to 3 years max in the prime of his career. I really, truly believe that. I think, once he hits 30, that 32, 33 season, okay, we may start to see him maybe slow down a little bit. But right now, age 30, age 31, and that 32 season, I think he's going to be just fine. Just fine and thriving, not surviving, thriving. So I thought he nailed the age conversation. He talked about the emotions of the negotiations, and that's always the hardest part to navigate. And he talked about his faith a lot because he's like, his faith was really what got him through a lot of these tough situations with the negotiations, because he was in his feelings, as anyone would be going through something like that. And he talked about the love he got from the players. And he talked about when the contract was done, he hadn't told anyone yet, but apparently the players all knew. They got the word because he came inside from outside and went to the weight room. And when he went to the weight room, he said there were about 30 to 40 players already in there waiting on him, cheering him on, giving him love, showering him with praise and adulation and congratulations. And he said they were coming from everywhere. And he said that was one of the greatest moments of his career to this point because it made him feel like all of the work he had done as a teammate, it was starting to show like that they really, really rock. It honestly, I know where he's coming from, and it's not quite the same thing. But I think the reason why the Kings, we were all like in awe of Sunday's event is because of what Terry just described. And it's that love. And you don't really realize how much people love you until you get in that environment and you're showered with that love and you feel it and you take it in and you realize, oh my God, they really, really rock with me. And I've done a really good job of fostering relationships that people value enough to give me this kind of love. And he talked about something that's really near and dear to my heart. I always tell people, I got a buddy that's really close to me that I always tell him, he's always filling up everybody's cup. I try to do my best to try to pour into his cup because nobody really fills his cup up, right? And I'm like, you can't keep pouring and pouring, bro, if nobody's putting anything in your cup. What do you got left to give? And that's when your battery usually runs out and you start to shut down because I'm pouring. I'm constantly pouring and pouring into other people and no one's pouring into me. And Terry said it's hard to pour from an empty cup. And I just thought that was a really apt line. And so he talked about everybody giving him love, which makes me think there's a commander's log coming, right? Like, how is it that he didn't tell anybody, but 40 dudes are lined up in the weight room waiting on him? That feels like some commander's log shit. If I ever, heard it, I'm like, yo, we getting a commander's log for this shit. Straight up. The whole Terry walking in with his wife, Caitlin, and I'm telling you, the weight room scene, him signing the contract, all of that shit is what Commander's Log episodes are made of. So be on the lookout for that, whether it's this week, which I think would make a ton of sense, but I don't know if they can turn it around fast enough, or next Thursday, as the season goes to kick off, they go ahead and drop it at 7 o'clock next Thursday. Whatever the case may be, I think we got a Commander's Log coming. So I thought that was really dope. The story of everybody waiting on him in the weight room, and that was the same story that AP had told us the day earlier in the day, right? He talked about the conversations between himself, Terry, himself and AP, and himself and DQ, and those were important conversations. Or excuse me, I said himself and Terry, himself and Jaden, himself and AP, and himself and DQ. We'll come back to the Jaden conversation because that was something that was really touched on later on in the presser. But those conversations between himself and AP and himself and DQ were really instrumental in getting this done, I believe. Because had Terry been at home, away from the team, I think this is when that hold-in, and I actually felt like hold-ins were awkward because it forces a guy to be around people that he really doesn't want to communicate with because he's upset with them due to the fact that he doesn't think that they value him, right? I actually think it's a really good thing when it's a situation like this where you have people who do value one another, who do respect each other, who can talk to each other in a respectful manner that is going to lead to productive conversations that helps get things done. I really believe Terry being in the building and having those conversations with DQ, having those conversations with AP, help clear the air, because if you would have just left it at that Eastern Automotives, Terry, that shit could have festered and turned into some real ill will, right? Because now I feel like you don't value me. We haven't had any conversations to clear the air. And it just continues to fester and linger. Now you're not showing me your love by in financial terms. And so it just feels like you really, truly don't value me. And for them to be able to sit down, it's like, come on, Terry, we're going to get this shit done. You got to understand where we coming from, but we love you, bro. And we're not going to trade you. Like, he needed to hear that. He needed to hear that because Terry ain't want to go nowhere. I've always told you, guys don't want to leave the team that drafts them. Because in their mind, that's the team that believed in me when nobody else did. It's not like Terry was a first-round pick. Terry wasn't a second-round pick. Terry was a third-round pick, special teamer when we got him. This organization took a chance on a kid that a lot of people overlooked and helped him become the star that he is now. And that's never lost on these players. The team that took them in the draft and gave them an opportunity to change their lives, they don't forget that. They don't want to leave. Sometimes they have to. But he never wanted to go. And AP was like, we're not trading you, bro. We're going to get this shit done. And DQ was like, look, this is that cross-section of, the business side of things and, the personal, right? And on the field and business. And we got to make sure that we don't lose sight of who we are, what the ultimate goal is. And I think those conversations really got this thing done too, right? And he talked about that. He talked about the time frame of getting ready for week 1, which I have no doubts he's going to be ready. He talked about gratitude and peace and how those two emotions really came over him when this deal was done. And, I can only imagine the stress that he felt and how this weighed on him and how much better you feel when a situation is finally over. Just think about something that makes you super anxious, right? Let's say you hate speaking in public and you've got a big presentation to do for school or for work, and you just hate talking in front of people. And you guys got a conference room, it fits about 50 people in there, or you got a conference center, it fits 500 people in there, and you're doing a presentation in front of 200 of your colleagues, and you just hate speaking in front of people. That whole time where you're preparing and it's getting closer and closer, you're getting more and more anxious, and it's hard to be in a state of tranquility and peace, right? I imagine that's what Terry felt like. Anxious that the season is getting near and closer and the deal isn't done, and getting more and more anxious. And he talked about that scrimmage. Remember, we saw the shot of him and Jaden on the sideline. Jaden venting to him. He was during that press conference, she was like, I'm like, you did some shit like this. Like, I want to get out there, right? And it was definitely weighing on him. You get this deal done. There's a sense of gratitude that you feel to the team for finding a way to work this shit out and getting it done. And then there's this level of peace that comes over you because all of that stress, all of that worry, it's all gone now. And you're just back to being who you are, right? Who you've always been. So I definitely know he's like, man. And he talked about what that gratitude and peace look like. And I told you about him just warming up, catching the football before practice, music playing, teammates kikiing, and they're laughing and giving each other a hard time. He was saying shoot the shit, with his teammates. And that's something you miss. I don't want to say you take it for granted, but it's just a little thing that you just, because it's part of your everyday routine when you're out there, it's just something you expect to happen. And then when it's not happening anymore, you realize, damn, I missed that. Puts everything in its proper perspective, right? So then he talked about what it's like getting on the field. And then he started to talk about new players. And the new players that he didn't get to be on the field with this summer and how he's seen them grow. He's like, I watch film, but I still wanted to be out there. And he talked about seeing Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. He talked about seeing Debo out there on the field. He talked about Jalen Lane, and he talked very glowingly about Jalen Lane. Like, I think he sees a lot of himself in Jalen Lane, because a lot of people see Jalen Lane as a slot guy. And I don't know if that's what we necessarily saw Terry as when he came out of Ohio State. A lot of people wanted to just put Jalen Lane in this slot box. Like, okay, you're a slot receiver, nothing else. And Lane actually looked pretty good outside in the preseason. So, especially the second game against Cincinnati. So he's like, yo, I think he can really help this team. He talked about his speed, which, you know, Terry can attest to, and his ability to play a little bit more physically than people give him credit for, because he said that's what you're going to get on the outside, is you're going to get physicality. So he talked about being impressed with, you know, some of the new defensive pieces that they brought on board. And, you know, he's like, we really feel like we got a chance to do something special this year. Then he talked about Jaden support, and I thought this was a really big part of his press conference, because it spoke to the relationship between he and his quarterback. And that's a big relationship, one that I think is imperative to the success of this team and to the success of the offense in particular. Those two are the engine that power the offense. Jaden and his abilities, and Terry and his abilities. When you look at this Commanders offense, the very first thing you sit down and do is say, how can I stop 5? And how can I stop 17? And it's been that way for us with Terry for the last 6 years, where even if we didn't have shit else on offense, all right, how do we neutralize 17? Used to be a lot easier in those days because there wasn't a lot around Terry to help him, and he damn sure ain't had no quarterback. And he talked about what it's like to be able to just go into the season with the same quarterback for a consecutive year. He's like, I've never done that in my career. That, first of all, how insane is that statement? A guy going in this year 7 has never had the same quarterback going into the season in consecutive years. Just let that shit marinate on your brain for a second. Like, don't say nothing. Just think about it. And then say it out loud so that you know that it's real. And then listen to the shit when you say it, because it sounds so effing ridiculous. But that's that was the state of the quarterback position in Washington. Always trying to put a Band-Aid solution on something that just needed the proper surgery, needed to be fixed the right way. Let's see if we can name every opening day starter for Terry McLaurin in his career to this point. 19, his rookie season, it was Dwayne Haskins. Case Keenum. In his rookie season, Case Keenum. In 20, it was Dwayne Haskins. In 21, it was Ryan Fitzpatrick. In 22, it was Carson Wentz. In 23, it was Sam Howell. In 24, it was Jaden Daniels. That is pure insanity, folks. Pure insanity. With a lot of Taylor Heineke, Alex Smith, and other backup quarterbacks sprinkled in the mix behind those guys. Pure insanity. So I'll just say this. He talked about Jaden's support, and he was like, Jaden was really there for him. Kept reminding him of what his worth was. You know, kept his spirits up. Let him know that he was missed out on the field, but don't compromise. You know, get what you deserve. We'll be here when when that whole situation is taken care of. Just continuing to positively reinforce Terry. And that's when he started talking about, having his cup filled up, like having someone pour into him was big. And not just his wife, but Jaden really being there for him. That's big, man. That's the kind of relationship you want between your star quarterback and your star receiver. He talked about his ankle, and he pretty much said, yeah, that was bullshit. But, we'll keep that between the trainers, the team, and myself. Translation, I never had an ankle injury. This was just a ploy and a tactic to – and again, that was a great job by the team of taking that bullet for Terry, basically allowing him – if they wanted to be an asshole, if this was a very contentious standoff, they could have said, no, you're not going on the pup list while you try to figure out if you want to sign this deal or not. No, you come in here, but you're not going on no list. Could have been on some Michael Parsons shit. But going on that list put him in a position where he didn't have to answer any questions. He didn't have to deal with anything. And he could kind of be away from the public eye because he's rehabbing inside the building when he's really not. Then he talked about 3 different types of shape: in shape, football shape, game shape. And there are 3 different distinct types of in shape. And I mentioned this on the Super Friends, on the Commander King stream last night, that it's a difference. Somebody said, Terry, they were worried about his conditioning. He sat down at the presser and he was huffing and puffing. That was garbage. He wasn't huffing and puffing at all. So he just took a deep breath and then he started talking. In shape, he is already in shape. In shape means you've been working out, you're for regular, normal activities, you're ready to rock and roll. You can get it done. Football shape is different. That means I can go out here, run around on the field, no pads on, no helmet, or just a helmet, no pads, or, the full get up, helmet, pads, etc. I can run around and make some shit happen, make some shit shake. Game shape is different. And none of the guys on this roster are currently in game shape. Game shape doesn't happen until you actually start playing games. Because nobody in the preseason is playing entire games. Generally, you're not even playing an entire half anymore. So he said, look, I'm a very disciplined nature person. So he's like, I'm cold tubs, the threading, the stretching, he does yoga, all that. He's like, I'm going to continue to do all of that stuff. The chiropractor, I take care of my body. And it allows me to do the things that I've done. And so he's like, I just got to remain disciplined. That's who I am. So that was great to hear. And then he talked about his relationship with Bobby Wagner. And he basically said, look, I've been the vet on this team for a minute. And it's not often that you get to the point where I'm at my career and there's still a guy on the roster that you can look to as an OG. But that's what Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz effectively provide for him. Is a guy or guys that have been there, done that, played at an extremely high level. He talked about Bobby's impact on him during his contract negotiation and how Bobby got him through a lot. He was like, Bobby was someone that he talked to. Bobby gave him a lot of advice. He said he didn't tell him what to do, but, he gave him a couple of, tidbits. And remember, Bobby's his own agent. So Bobby can sit there and tell you, hey, don't take this shit personal. Understand they got a job to do. You got a job to do. Your agent got a job to do, etc. So he said it was just cool to be able to go to somebody who's been through it all and, talk to them, because usually he's that guy for other people that come into the locker room. So to have that in Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz, he said, was a big deal for him. So that was Terry in a nutshell. And then he finished up the presser talking about his hoodie and how he can wear a hoodie at pretty much any time of day. So, or any season, et cetera, et cetera. So that was Terry's presser. I got a couple of supers and then we'll get out of here. Ben Schmoder, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Ben writes, y'all were wilding about my wedding. All love though. It was fun. We went off on a quick little tangent, but it was all love for sure. You know, no doubt about it, man. Congratulations again on the engagement, man. And I hope it goes beautifully. Damon Battle, been a member for 10 months. Really appreciate you. Writes, what's up, Lou? What's your ideal pass rush on 3rd and long? Frankie Louvu on one side, Von Miller on the other side. On the interior, Dorrance Armstrong, and I think I would probably just go with Duran, but I wouldn't be shocked if you tried to throw another guy on like Jacob Martin. But I think you still need that somewhat of size inside. So, excuse me. I think my favorite pass rush group will probably end up being Frankie Louvu, Von Miller, Duran Payne, and DA kicked inside. I think that's going to end up being my favorite rush group. We'll see, though. You know, that could all change, obviously. Imagine Mo. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, when will the next NFC East roundtable be? Super Friends? I think it's supposed to be next Tuesday. Again, I wouldn't hold my breath, but it's supposed to be on Tuesday. So we'll see if it transpires or not. All it takes is one person to be like, oh man, my schedule, yada, 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 and kaput. So, you know, we'll see what happens, but it's supposed to be on Tuesday. Anyway, I digress. I saw a lot of you saying that DQ was speaking during his presser. And I think I even seen some of you say that Bill chose number 22. Good for him if he did, in fact, do that. That's the right move. But I will take in the DQ presser, add that to the ledger for tonight's show. So we'll talk about what DQ said at the press conference. If we get any other post-practice pressers, I'll lock in on that, take some notes. So we'll talk about all of that transpiring from today. We'll talk about my expectations and what defines a successful season for me, your man Louie T, this upcoming season for the Commanders. And then lastly, we will make several toasts to the season. You don't want to miss it tonight here on the Louie T Network. So with that said, you guys, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to get to work here in preparing for tonight's show, and I will see you guys a little bit later on. Take care. Peace.